Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. We're immediately picking up with Nia helping Nixley escape the dream dimension. And it's like, oh yeah, that's hunky-dory, awesome. I will bring your mom back. I got some other business to do. It's like, wait, I thought you were going to go back to your world and everything. It's like, well, I kind of lied on that. But I'll still hold up my end of the deal. Which her mom's excited to have her back and everything. It's like, oh, that's great. But honey, what did you do? It's like, you should have never trusted Nixley. She's like, I know, but there's some part of me told me that not to trust her. But I knew there was also a part of me that was like, I knew she'd hold up her end of the bargain. And so her mom's like, the owl, like, I've been with you the entire time. Like, why didn't you register, like, my signal? And she's like, oh, the owl, it was you. It's like, well, I had a feeling I could trust it, but see, that's why I need you. It's like, I feel like the signs were pretty much there, but it's also like every time she's interpreted her dreams one way, it ended up being something else. So she's doubting herself a lot because she doesn't have anyone else to really go to about this. Truth be told, she actually does, but she's hesitant to go to that person because that ends up actually, interestingly enough, be part of this story. It's like her mom is kind of training her to get more comfortable, to understand things a little bit more. That, well, first and foremost, it's the situation of, it's like, right, we got 24 hours because basically as long as I'm still here, which is going to be 24 hours, you're going to be locked in this room and none of your friends are going to think about you because it's set up that anytime they think about you, their minds will automatically transition to something else. So they won't ask too much about, oh, where is Nia? So that way, no one really notices that she's been like going and haven't been able to get in contact with her. But essentially, her mom is training her to kind of be able to go into that dream dimension, like more like, okay, like being able to kind of control you going in there. But obviously, like, she starts running away from like the ravens that are there, and it's like, well, what do they mean? It's like a misfortune and stuff like that. It's like, no, what does the ravens mean to you? And it turns out the connection is a dollhouse. The dollhouse has significance from with her sister, and it's like, okay, it's about Maeve. In particular, we're still coming back to her and her sister not having a good relationship because it's like, right, Nia's the one that ended up with the powers. Maeve's the one that studied all about it. She was ready to jump onto it. Like, she embraced it more than Nia ever did. But that's because on some level, Nia knew the powers were hers, but she didn't want to hurt her sister. And now that she's become this hero and everything, like everything she's done, running away, becoming a reporter, like doing all of this, it's like she's kind of run away from the main thing, and that's her sister. Of like, in her means of trying not to hurt her sister, because it's like, right, this is everything you've ever wanted, and I've got, like, that already led to contention in the relationship. And so Nia hasn't like fully like fixed that. She's just kind of run away, because we noticed, like, ever since that story was introduced like seasons ago, we've never circled back to that. I kind of forget that was only back in season 4 when like Nia was introduced. It feels like so long ago, but it was like, no, that was only 2 seasons ago. It's kind of crazy to think about that. But nevertheless, I thought that was so fascinating. That is like, that's kind of where a lot of this stems from. It's like, basically, her mom is like, don't run away. Don't exit a dream out of fear. Because I guess it's like, when you exit it out of fear, it makes you less likely. Probably makes it frazzles you and probably makes it a little harder for you to kind of come back in, because that fear is going to be there. And like, your next time you're going to try and come to this dream world again, it's not going to be as easy, because that fear is already instilled. So you need to kind of conquer it and not be afraid when you leave. Or maybe it's supposed to represent kind of almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street type of thing, of like, you can bring your, like, that fear, you can almost bring it into the world and it can manifest and turn into a whole nasty thing. I'd assume it's the former, but maybe there's some facet of the latter that could be a possibility as well. But it's just interesting to know, like, you know, that in itself, like, that aspect of Nia running has kind of been like a through line through not just her relationship with her sister, but also like her powers and everything too. Like, you don't have to like turn your eyes away from it. Like, don't run away from, like, even when you are afraid, like, you have to face it. You can't give into that fear. That's how you really be able to interpret your dreams and everything. But that's also the thing I was thinking too, like, her sister knows all there is to know about it, but it's like, right, I can't necessarily go to her for help because it'd just be rubbing more salt into the wound type of situation. So I know that's where that kind of a little stems from in that regard. So but her time with her mom was cut short, because it is a thing of like, right, you don't know what kind of hell you've released on this earth, because it's like she tells her that story about like, right, a woman who slandered her friend. She went to like a rabbi to like confess and like her sorrows and everything. It's like, right, gather up all these feathers from these pillows. And then he threw it out, and she's like, right, gather them all up. And it's like, no, that's an impossible task. No more impossible for you trying to reverse something that's already. You can't go back in time. So basically saying Nia has to deal with the consequences of what she did. It's like, I get why you did what you did, but you have to face the consequences. You can't run from it either. Like, you have to, plant your feet, live in that grief and those mistakes. Because I think that's also the thing too. Like, she hasn't fully lived in the grief of, like, I think she grieved losing her mom, sure, but I think it's still that want, not fully like embracing that her mom was gone, but still beside her, not really recognizing that. It's kind of what sent her down this path. But it's like, right, there might be some things that come forward going forward that you won't be able to make up for. You can't just undo them. So you have to kind of live in those consequences, and it's like, I know you have the strength to interpret your dreams and be able to figure things out. So that's Nia's side of things. Kind of tie in, well, first and foremost, I love the Supergirl and Brainy PSA, and it's just like, him bringing up like his donut situation, but he's like, you need to eat greens, and it's like, and Kara being like, oh yeah, that's why you're so green. He's like, yeah, and just like, ha ha ha, and then Brady giving the thumbs up, and it's like, oh god, Kara's like, get rid of it. It's like, you already sent it over, Andrea. What? She's already posted it. What? 800,000 people have already seen it. No, I feel so bad for her, dude. She just and it's almost like the meme that comes back to haunt her over and over throughout the episode. Just like, oh god, because even later on, Kelly's like, man, it's up to 5 million views. It's like, no, this is so embarrassing. I think it's just cute and so freaking funny. Like, to think about, like, I mean, because it makes me think of like the Legends. The Legends literally did a commercial. Once again, like it was Gary as the Flash, Nate as Green Arrow, and Sarah as Supergirl, kind of doing like a commercial. It was back in season 4. It was Hey World. That whole thing, I believe it was connected to that. So it just kind of makes me think of that. Just like, once again, like the marketing of like superheroes and stuff like that. And it's just an interesting thing, that because it's something that, like The Boys touches on, like, oh yeah, the celebrity of superheroes and like their endorsements and stuff like that. Obviously, like, we see like the super negative side of how that can be used in the case of Stormfront. But obviously this is the more hopeful front. I mean, this is Supergirl, the literal paragon of hope, so it's obviously a different thing, but it's such an interesting conversation. They're like, yeah, superheroes are celebrities, so people are more likely to listen to a celebrity. Like, even though you do have that like pushback where people are like, oh, you're a celebrity, shut up, nobody cares, it's accept your reward and everything. It's that whole conversation, but it's also like, yeah, superheroes would be heralded as like heroes. Like, you're more likely to listen to a superhero than you are anyone else. I mean, come on, dude. Superheroes saved not only the city, but the world, the universe, the multiverse. That's a kind of, the multiverse did collapse and will get wiped out and then kind of got rebirthed on one planet. It's a whole thing, so it's just interesting to think about. But this episode is about using that to her advantage for Kara's sake, because she ends up meeting up with Orlando from last episode. The affordable housing he was trying to be a part of fell through, basically because this councilwoman is signing off on basically this company buying that property and basically making it their new headquarters. And so, but because of not having a home, Orlando can't get Joey back, nor can he get a job, because he needs a job to be able to afford. It's a catch-22 type of situation. So, but Kara's like, I promised I was going to help you, like, and so she does what she does. Like, she, goes through everything trying to find, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Orlando. His story is one of many, because yes, he has a criminal history, and obviously the system does not make it easier for you to pick yourself back up. Even Brainy later on brings up like the statistics of like, oh, it's like 2 of 5. So it's kind of like, right, the odds are that big of like, that's the whole sad aspect of like, once again, the criminal system like varies differently. The system itself there's a lot of similarities all across the board, but it's also it varies differently from every country. And I think the U.S.'s system is a beast all on its own. There's good, there's bad, there's flaws in every system, some more so than others. I'll just kind of put it at that. I'm not trying to say like it's not like a one shoe fits all type of situation, you know. But it's interesting because the whole conversation is whenever things seem like they are getting better, they ultimately end up getting worse off than they were before. So, Kara tried to do, like, Andrea kind of pushed Kara into convincing Supergirl to do, like, a Q&A, because it's like, right, like, throwing out numbers and statistics, that's not really going to do it. But you kind of make it more fun and, like, everything, like, oh, people get their questions asked by Super. It was more so about broccoli, the first few, but it was also about, like, right, it ends up being a conversation about, like, right, you tell us, you know, you talk to us about being hope, but then, like, the moment we have hope, you are, because basically there's a lot of people in that community that would benefit from that building not just being a housing thing, because there would be so many jobs, it pumps so much money into the economy, but it's also like you'd be sacrificing these people, so it turns into a conversation of the many for the few, because I'm sure the conversation is also, well, these are criminals, they're most likely going to fall back into that system anyway, but it's like if you don't help them, they're more likely going to anyway. Like it's a nasty cycle that like will chew people up and spit them out and repeat the cycle over and over again unless you break it. And it's not going to be the easiest thing to break. It's such a well-oiled machine, and obviously the worst way possible. And so that this machine's been going for so long, it's hard to really break through it. So, because Kara tried talking to the councilwoman, which obviously the actress who plays her, which is so interesting. Like most recently, interestingly enough, the thing I saw her most recently was like Charmed, which is interesting because she wasn't playing a very nice character in Charmed, and she's kind of playing a not so nice character in this regard too. But what also makes that interesting is obviously the actress who plays Nia's mom plays Celeste in Charmed as well. So it's just that was just kind of interesting. But even more so, like the actress who played the councilwoman, the thing I most recently saw her in was Leverage, because I obviously rewatched the entire series, and you know she played Nate's ex-wife Maggie. So that's kind of like the thing I kind of best know her. I also know she was in the show Covert Affairs. I think she was like one of the leads in that as well. Those are the two things I know her from. Even though I never saw Covert Affairs, Leverage and that are kind of the things I best know her from. Tensions and all that aside. Kara tried to come at it, you know, the councilwoman, and obviously it's a debate about, like, you know, what's better for the community in the long run, but then also the councilwoman kind of made it clear, because it's like, right, because Kara's like, right, what you're doing is gentrification, you're going to basically push out all the people who already live there, but it's like, but she also kind of made it pretty clear, like, yeah, why don't you go back to doing your thing of, like, PSAs about vegetables. Basically, it's the equivalency of dribble and shut up. It's like, go out, do your... Which kind of doesn't work in the case of a superhero. It's like, leave the politics to me. I guess it makes sense. It's like, shut up, do the superhero thing. Stay in your lane type. It's the general gist of that conversation, but it's still like... It's like, how... Really hard to say. It's, you know... You're still a dick for saying that, like, you know, to, like, a basketball player, like they're not entitled to their opinions about certain things, but also it's like it seems even more dickish to say that to a literal superhero. Just I don't know, man. It just, but once again, it's the DC universe, so it's like in this universe, I think a lot of people like the novelty of a superhero just kind of like it wears off. Like obviously, like a lot of the general public is still like but it's like no. When it comes to me and my position, potentially some money and some dealings I've had set up, I'm not gonna let some superhero tell me what to do. It's like no, you don't know what you're talking about. Shut up, type of thing. So, but it seemed like that's more so her concern. But I thought it was interesting because both Kara and Kelly each gave each other a different perspective on things, because Kelly's struggling with obviously the training that Alex is running her through, and she ends up knocking Alex down at one point, but it wasn't the move that Alex was trying to teach her. But Kara ends up telling her, like, right, you got to recognize that, like, it's okay, like, I got to adapt, like, that was a really good move, and you were able to take Alex down. Yeah, it might not have been the move you're trying to go, but it's like, no, like, what matters is you were able to accomplish it by adapting, and so you need to start seeing yourself for being as amazing as you are, like the way we know you're capable of being, you know? But what perspective she gave Kara is like, how do you talk people down? Like, you don't need just statistics in people's faces. That's not going to work. That's not how you talk down any of the bad guys you talk down. You come from a personal story. Like why the whole thing with Brainy and the broccoli and the greens thing worked so well is because he also came at it from a perspective of like he was eating unhealthy. Like, so he brought that story up. So it made it more personable. And it's like, right, Kara realizes that this isn't her story to tell it. She can use her platform to highlight someone else and put them in the spotlight. And that person ends up being Orlando. And he opens up about his story, about, you know, what he's lost, what he's been through, what this housing initiative like could mean for him. It could be a fresh start, an opportunity to actually give his brother a home, because it would mean breaking a cycle. Because my brother, I remember what it's like to actually grow up in an actual home and have love, you know, feel it. And it's like, my brother's never had that. He's bounced from foster home to foster home. Obviously, this most recent one not being as cooperative with his circumstances as it should be, as nurturing of his circumstances as it should be, I should rather say. And so he wants to not, because he's afraid, like, if his brother continues down, like, if his brother could end up slipping further into the system, and eventually it's like the cycle could end up repeating, like my mistakes could end up being his. And I don't want him just to be, you know, another statistic. I don't want him to falter like I did. I want him to have an opportunity to break away from that, you know? And so it's like, right, when you're making the council are making this decision about this and everything, I want you to think about, it's not just like a building or something like that. It's like, it's my life and other people's lives at stake here that you're kind of, you know, determining the future of. So obviously all the Nixley stuff happens, which we'll get to in a bit. But other than that, they were able to save the day. I did like Kelly. I was almost hoping at some point Orlando could have saved that councilwoman, because I think that would have meant, but it's like Kelly, it was an important part for Kelly to recognize, like, right, like, I got to do things my own way. Like, I took that board and I protected her from the glass freezing and shattering in her face. And, you know, it's like I handle things my way. So it all, you know, worked out in the end. And the council decided to let the building stay, like, as the affordable housing that it was. And Kara tried to talk to the councilwoman, being like, right, you did the right thing. And she's like, right, this place is filled with criminals. But it's like, those people deserve a second. Doesn't everyone deserve a second chance? And it's just kind of like, yeah, she kind of walks away. She's like, you might have fooled the other people in the council, but not me. It's like, okay, lady. Like, I get, like, your perspective isn't as altruistic as you make it sound. Like, you're very pessimistic. And, you know, the thing about Kara is, and I think Kryptonians too, they like to believe, you know, something that's shared between her and her cousin, you know, is the belief in people, believing that people, giving people the second chance, like, hoping and believing that people, you know, when given the opportunity, can rise to the occasion, rather than being pessimistic and just assuming the worst, you know? I mean, that assumption about people, like, oh, they're criminals and stuff like that, and just not looking at them as the individuals that they are, looking at their stories for what they are, that is part of this whole system, looking at them just as criminals, that kind of plays into, like, why they don't have the opportunities they have, and they kind of get caught up in the, you know, never being able to break free. So luckily everything worked out. But Kara is kind of sad that, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, this victory was well deserved. Like, Orlando deserved this chance, but it is just that, it's one victory. It's like, you know, but Brady brings up the fact is that all we have to do is keep going. The fact is that, you know, systemic change can make it seem like, right, you're at such an uphill battle. It might seem like, right, it's just one battle. Like, who's to say the next one will work out this way? You know, it's like you won the battle, but what about the war type of thing? But it's like, all we can do is stand fast in what we're doing. And, you know, don't worry, like, you're not going this alone. You got me by your side, too. And I thought that was pretty dope, so. But tying this all in with the Nixley stuff is that Nixley ended up getting caught by Mitchell. I was like, hey, he's back. Which I'm surprised Kara didn't ask too much. But to be fair, it's like, right, the only people who know, like, right, your history got changed. So Nia, I mean, well, it's kind of your reality. It's been your life for like over a decade now. So, like, who am I to, like, interfere and say anything about it? So it's like, because I don't know, Kara hasn't had those conversations. Like, it kind of comes up a little bit when Nia and Brandy got back, but it's like, other than that, it's like, no, it's like, what did you change? Don't worry about it. So Kara doesn't know that. I don't know if they really ever explained, like, right, how they went to save you, and it's like, yeah, everything else got pretty much stayed the same. Yep, nothing ever changed. Girl, like, didn't completely change at that time and stuff like that. So I just think that's so fascinating in the long run how that all ended up playing out. But Mitch is here, and he's been here, but he had, the interesting parallels between Orlando's story as well as Mitch's, because his partner ended up leaving here like a year ago, and he's the only one that's still been here, but he's been, being arrested for petty stuff, and so he tried to get the zoo open again, the species zoo open again, and he tried to get Nixley, a fifth dimensional, but she was like, "Oh, I'm without my powers," because helping out Nia bring back her mom zapped the last of her powers, and she's like, "Oh, I was punished by pretending to be forced to walk on this earth as a mere human." It's like, oh God, you just, every word out your mouth, you're just such a liar. And so ultimately, she ends up convincing Mitch, is like, "Oh, let's capture Supergirl. She'll be the biggest draw." So they end up kidnapping an alien engineer. He ends up building something. It turns out it's a freeze bomb. And it turns out the bomb is meant to, if it even goes off, it could even freeze and capture Kara. Well, Kara uses her heat vision and ends up destroying it. At least she thought she did. But basically the device was meant to charge from the heat vision, and Nixley rolls in and fully gets restored, because even the little bit of her power she had left that she used on Nia, it's she was never going to be at full strength because most of her power was taken and she was dumped into Phantom Zone by her father. So, but now she wants to get revenge against not only her dad, but also Kara. It's we were allies, we were friends, you betrayed me. It's I had no choice. You weren't going to listen to me of the greater danger of what you were doing. It's come on, Nixley, you're so focused on revenge and kind of a little crazy. To be fair, rational thought isn't, it's kind of right. I don't handle betrayal well. I plan to go kill my dad. It's all I've kind of focused on. But for her, she was in there for so long. That loneliness and powerlessness is you're going to feel that. It's well, she kind of already felt like that. And she's still kind of, I think, dealing with the PTSD of being surrounded by all that. But it's also I'm sure from Nixley's perspective, it's no, you got, you were only there for a limited amount of time. You weren't there as long as I was. And also you left me for dead, but it's right, you were just kind of all on your whole thing. Kara tried to save you, but that's not all on her, but it is on you. So for her, her revenge is just, it's not only, it's to make Kara feel powerless. It's right, this is something that's so important to you. She uses her magic to destroy the building. And obviously Kara's stuck in place from the ice because she ended up absorbing it along with all that power that was built up. So, but for her, it's right, this is magic, and the only thing that can beat magic is magic. So Kara relies on the magic user she knows, fifth dimensional, your boy Mr. Mixel Petalik, which I knew he was coming into it because I saw Thomas Linden's name at the beginning. I was hey! And it was getting near the end of the episode. I'm he hasn't popped up. Is he going to literally pop? Because I thought he was going to pop up on his own and save Kara's hey, I'm here to save the day. Because the last thing we see is him actually looking in the direction of Nixley, because obviously Nixley brought it up during the, oh yeah, her and Mixie go back. So that's definitely going to be interesting. I'm always trying to remember what season it was. I want to say it was season 4. Maybe that was a season 5 episode. I want to no, it had to be a season 4 episode. I think it was, because I believe it was the last time we saw Mixie was or was it a season 5 episode? I think it was. I do believe it was a season 4 episode. I will correct myself in the comments down below, but I believe it was the 100th episode. It was the kind of recap episode. It's her and Mixie jumping through past stuff of other seasons, Rain and the Dark Kryptonians and Mon-El and stuff of that nature. So last time we saw Mixie, but it's nice to have him back in the story because I adore Thomas Lennon as well. So that's more icing on the cake. That is, that's role's kind of been his since then, but it's getting one final appearance from him, which makes me immediately think are we actually going to deal with this Nixley storyline immediately or not? Because Nia does she interpreted her dream, so she probably figured it out, but once again it's the consequences of her actions, so she's probably going to do everything she can. I can't reverse it, but I can help make things, that building ended up getting destroyed, so how that councilwoman's going to probably turn that against Supergirl, because it's right, what did I tell you, the criminals? So the criminals are probably going to get blamed for that, even though it was on Nixley, and I'm sure Nia's going to feel guilt because it's she's the one that set this all in motion, and now people like Orlando, that building was so important. Maybe Mixie can replace it, rebuild. Like, I mean, it would straight up have to be rebuilt, and that would take time and money. So it's just like, just when like just as Orlando was saying, like just when things get better, they get worse. So I'm sure a lot of those are going to be contributing factors. I'm curious to see. I get the feeling like we might end up with a situation where she ends up taking Mixie's powers as well. Like, I don't know if this is all going to get resolved next episode, or like I said, whether that's going to be a continuous arc situation. I feel like with the way they've set her up, that's going to be a continuous arc thing for like the rest of the season. Like I said, probably bouncing back and forth between that and Alexing. Not unless she ends up being like the major baddie, but I think, like I brought up countless times, I do believe she's probably going to join forces with Lex. We'll see how that works out, because I'm sure like at the end he's going to end up taking her powers, because he's done that time again. It's like, oh yeah, let's work together until I ultimately stab you in the back, because it's like, no, it's about me. I rule things alone. I don't need someone else on my throne. Like, I mean, especially because he's got the whole complicated family situation. She's got the complicated family situation, which there's also the thing about Lena dealing with her family situation, like everything with her mom. Like, we haven't really gotten any reports back about like how that went for her, whether or not that worked out or not. So I'm definitely interested to ultimately see how this all ends up playing out going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.